rise up, whoa, not gonna give up, whoa, we're gonna rise up, whoa, we're gonna rise up, whoa, not gonna give up, whoa, we're gonna rise up, yeah, oh, we're gonna rise up.
Well, welcome to Rise Up, hosted by me, Steve Collum. I'm so glad you're here today because we're going to be having an amazing interview with Korina Huddleston. She has an amazing story, and we dive in deep with how she created her businesses and why it takes many businesses to create the perfect business. But one of the cool things that we really dive into is how she came up with the perfect name for her business. And it's just such a great conversation that we have today. And so I'm really excited that you're here, and you'll get to check that out. And so before we dive in, of course, I just want to share with you to let you know that this podcast is brought to you by or sponsored by my Patreon account. If you'd like to be a sponsor and sponsor one of my shows, please head over to patreon.com/Steve Collum and consider joining up and being a member or becoming a sponsor. Every single bit really helps getting this podcast out and shining some light and making the world just that little bit brighter. And also, I want to let you know, if you want to join this conversation and get to know me a little bit more and become part of a private group on Facebook, head over to Rise Up with Steve Collum Facebook groups, and you can join that group. And there's a little questionnaire there just before you get in, because it's a private group. It's a very exclusive little group. And we have conversations. We talk about the podcast and little takeaways, and sometimes I share little behind the scenes, why I did it, what happened before the call, and all that kind of thing. And it's a great place just to hang out, and I get to know you guys, because you guys are listening to me and getting to know me, but I'd love to get to know you guys a bit more too. So head over there, and I've got many exciting things coming up in the future. I'm looking at doing some coaching calls and helping some people out one-on-one. So if that's something you'd want to be a part of, definitely reach out. And anyway, and also I want to ask you, if it's possible, I'd love some 5-star reviews, and it's something that really helps this podcast kind of get drifted up to the top, or heading up to the top, which gets to shine more light out there. And any feedback or any reviews would be so much appreciated. So anyway, let's go ahead and dive into this interview. It's a good one. So here we go.
Awesome. So I'm so excited, and thank you so much, Korina, for coming in on the call. I'm excited to chat with you today because we had a quick little call a couple of weeks ago, or last week, just to get to know you a little bit about what you do. And oh my goodness, I think we're going to have an awesome chat. We've got a lot of things in common, but thank you so much for hanging out with us.
Yeah, thanks so much, Steve. I'm excited to be here and see where this takes us.
Absolutely. Well, one of from the audience who might know who you are, you run a successful bookkeeping company, and you have a really cool name, a very special name, and there's a huge reason why you started this bookkeeping company, and there's some other stuff that you're doing, but I don't want to. I know a little bit about, but I don't want to. I want to ask you more about it. But before we get into some of those real heart, real things that you're the real purpose behind starting your own business, behind being an entrepreneur. Before we get into those kind of things, tell us a little bit about your background, or how, and I guess especially, how did you get into bookkeeping? Like, is that your history? Did you go to school for that, or tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I did start my professional career right out of the military and high school and college time in the accounting industry, and I absolutely loved it. And for lots of different reasons, like getting married and having two beautiful babies, I moved away from accounting and I did a bunch of other things. And some of that was owning my own businesses. So I would love to say this is my first business and it's wildly successful, but it's not my first business. I have learned through trial and error up till this point. So, my son, David, was graduating high school. I knew that he was going to go off and join some sort of military branch. That was his desire, and absolutely supported that. So I really wanted a business that I could be a little bit more flexible in my time and where I spent it. And where I was working while he was graduating high school was in a wonderful company in Seattle, Washington. And that was not going to give me the flexibility that I wanted. So I had this dream to open my own business again for many years before that, and just didn't really know what I wanted to do. I loved accounting. I love numbers. And it was just this beautiful, magical kind of time where I was doing a lot of research, figuring out what sort of job where I could go and take a week off to go see him, or if he needed to move, how I could go help him. And I stumbled across this training for a digital bookkeeper. And it was phenomenal. Like, this gave me everything that I wanted in my next career. So I started that just about 3.5 years ago now. So early 2020, when lots of other things was going on, I started the business, and my son graduated high school and joined the Army. And the business right now, I do this full time, and I absolutely love it. And so let's rewind just a few minutes, because the name of my business is Madison Financial Group. And I talked about, like, I had two babies. Well, Madison was born with a rare genetic disorder. And we knew about the age of 8 when she was diagnosed. We had known things were like something was off. She wasn't developing quite on that normal spectrum. And so when at the age of 8, she was diagnosed. And so we knew that she would probably have a very short lifespan, probably not make it past 11 or 12. So what I want to share with people is, if you're given that, just know you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
And in that journey, there's going to be a lot of hard things, but it's also beautiful. And beautiful things can come out of that. So Madison did pass away. She was about 13 and a half. And so.
Yeah. And so you said that you found that out when she was at the age of 8. So I guess there was many questions as she was kind of why isn't she developing faster, or what kind of, did you have any questions before you got that diagnosis?
Yeah, so because her condition was so rare, like, we would go, like, at the age of 2 and 3, we were going to doctors being like, this just isn't right. There's something off, there's something wrong. And they couldn't tell us. I had doctors tell me that I was an overreactive parent and I needed to go home and learn parenting skills, and there was nothing wrong with my child. So if you ever get that, keep advocating for yourself and your children, please.
Wow, that's 100% wrong. Obviously.
Absolutely. And lots of tests and lots of more tests. We finally, just a miracle that this one MRI was seen by this fantastic technician. They saw something. So for PCAN is what she has. It's and I'm probably not going to say this exactly right, but it's panthokinesis neurodegeneration with brain iron accumulation. They call it PCAN for short. Between the technician and the doctor, they noticed these kind of gray spots on the brain, and that was their, no other condition has this. They were able to diagnose her when she was 8. So we got to start that grieving process when we got that, because then we knew what was ahead of us.
Right. Wow.
And so
yeah, that's wow. I guess what was some of the, like you said, you started the grieving process, and I know the grieving can be different for so many different people, and that's one thing I looked up. How does a guy grieve? Like, how does a guy grieve? And it's like, well, number one rule is there's no rules. There's no there's no proper way or right or wrong way to do it. And so how did you kind of because that would have just shattered, I'd imagine it would have shattered your life and your family. What were some things that kind of, like, I know you kind of you said actually just a few minutes ago, you said it's all right, it's okay. So maybe that was some sort of way, or how did you grieve, I guess?
yeah, absolutely. I remember reading a book that was like, there's no right way, there's no wrong way, there's no timeline, there's no time frame. And that gave me the permission to actually like not grieve in this very moment, because we have to go to the doctor, or we have to go to therapy, or my son David was 3 years younger than Madison, and David needed to go to school or to a soccer game, or he was into sports growing up. So that was really nice, just given that permission, like I can grieve when I need to, still carry on with life, and I can always come back to it if I choose and when I choose. And of course, life is messy and it all commingles. And there were times I didn't deal with it well, and there were times when I was like, I got this, I can do all the things. And then and even today, honestly, where Madison's been gone for 10 years, and there are still days that I'm like, nope, not going to do it.
Yeah, gosh. And that's so that's just, it's like, it's funny because we've both been through such devastating losses and such devastating futures. The futures of our kids have been ripped away. They didn't have. And so it's kind of like, when someone mourns, or someone grieves a loss of someone who's lived a full life, or 70, 80, it's definitely a different kind of thing. Although that, if someone, it's still a loss, it's still a grieving process. But it's one thing that I've noticed, a few years ago, I lost my mom, and so that was a very different thing. She was 75, and so she, or just before 75, and so she, she lived a full life, and I grew up with my mom. I didn't have her, but losing Ash, it was such a like a devastation of like, there's all that future that he had or he could have had was gone. And I imagine that would be very similar for you, that Madison passed away, did you say 13, when she was 13?
Yeah,
So,
13 and a half. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So what kind of life, once you knew at the age of 8 that you knew that the time was extremely short, how did you deal with that? Or did you try and fight for, I guess denial is part of grief, so there's probably times where you were like, no, they got it wrong, let's go get no, they're all wrong. How did you kind of work through some of that and come to an acceptance, and then because there's still quite a few years, that's like 4 years that you had with her after the diagnosis?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we started that grieving, the part of no, let's keep fighting, that was before her diagnosis, because once we had that, she had for the most part stopped walking. She had some other difficulties with just those fine motor skills. We had already seen that deterioration. So once we got the diagnosis, it just explained what was happening next. And what is, I believe, so beautiful is her dad and I really focused on quality, not quantity. We knew the quantity was short, the time was short. So it was about quality, the best life that we could provide for her for the short time that we had left. And what I find such just a beautiful thing is I've continued living that way in everything I do. It's about that quality of life that I'm leading. And I who knows, right? Tomorrow is not guaranteed for any of us. So how do we live that best life today and in the moment and being present?
Oh, wow. Yeah. And so did you know that you had 4 years, or were you expecting, did the doctor say, look, it could be a year, did they give you any time frame, or did you go on the longer side or the shorter side than what they were saying?
Yeah, so the average was, I believe, between 11 and 12 years that children with the same diagnosis, obviously that's the average, there's some a little longer. So we planned for the best. And again, it was about the quality of life. We didn't want her to live uncomfortably. We didn't want to prolong life if she was not comfortable, and she was not in her body. Part of the condition, the best way to put it would be just uncomfortable. The body is trying to move and do things that aren't natural for us because of the brain on the iron that accumulates in the brain. So yeah, 13 and a half years was longer than we expected, and so grateful we had that time.
Yeah, and so she was, I'm imagining, like, I don't know kind of how that, and a lot of the listeners might know, what does that look like? And maybe you can talk a little about, you said that she stopped walking, so I'm imagining that she's pretty much, she was in bed, 24/7. And was she able to eat food, or did you have to have, what was that quality of life, I guess, for somebody who doesn't know what that would look like on the inside? Your home, was that at your house, your home?
Yeah, this is one of those conditions that don't look it up on the internet, because you can never unsee those things. So I am going to downplay a little bit of what it really looks like, just because it's hard for me to talk about. Mm-hmm. So part of the quality that we provided for Madison is, she wasn't in bed in a room all by herself, right? She was always part of our family, always, in the living room watching cartoons. Her brother, they were so cute together. One of my favorite stories to tell is that, so she could kind of she could roll over, and just her thoughts were all there, and she just couldn't.
Wow, well, that was amazing. Thank you so much, Korina. That was awesome. Thank you so much. Thanks for sharing your amazing story and really giving us some takeaway points. Absolutely brilliant. Thank you. And I just want to let you guys know too that if this has been helpful to you, if you want me to continue doing this, please head over to your Spotify or Apple or wherever you're playing your podcast, and click on review. And if you could give us a 5-star review, that would be absolutely amazing. That actually helps us kind of get higher up in the feed, and so that more people might listen to it, and there'll be more people be inspired. So every little review helps. And so thank you so much. And yeah, I guess and don't forget, head over to the Facebook group if you'd like to join this conversation. I'd love to get to know you. You guys are getting to know me listening to this podcast, but I'd love to get to know you. And so head over there to Rise Up with Steve column in the Facebook groups, and I will see you there. Awesome. All right,
whoa, we're gonna rise up. Whoa, not gonna give up. Whoa, we're gonna rise up. rise up, yeah.